it's not a great time to be a Spurs fan at the moment. I think everyone can agree on that. Welcome to everyone in the chat at the moment. 130 people in the chat. Big up to everyone. Hope you're all doing well in this difficult time. 1 win in 8, 1 no wins at home in 2 months, 12th in the league. It's not a great time at the moment to be supporting Tottenham Hotspur, but maybe there are brighter times ahead. That's what we've got to hope for. But look, we'll start off with the first kind of topic, which comes from David Ornstein yesterday, and he was talking on NBC, and he was asked about Ange Postecoglou's future at Tottenham, and he was quoted as saying, Ange Postecoglou is 100% safe. There is no uncertainty about his future at the moment. And Tottenham are backing him to lead this project that obviously we have embarked on since he's come in now 18 months ago. Obviously, it's garnered mixed reaction. I think I do think from when we've done polls and things like that, and also from what I've seen in the stadium, I would say majority are still not wanting him to be sacked. However, there is obviously a substantial section of the fan base that are ready to see him gone, and I think there are obviously valid reasons for that with the form and the results and all these different things. But Gav, for you, is when you heard that news? Well, yes, I don't know if you have heard it. This might be the first time you're hearing it, but what is your reaction to the fact that David Ornstein, who's probably the most reliable journalist out there at the moment, he is saying that Ange, there's no uncertainty about his future, apparently. So that would imply even a heavy defeat maybe on Wednesday and he's still safe.
Yeah, I hate when they do these things because they just stay quiet, like don't. I get that it's to kind of show solidarity for Ange, showing like Ange is frustrated that people don't get the context, right? Which we can get into. But I guess it's the club saying, we get it, so we're willing to back and we understand the situation. We caused the situation with him, we're not going to throw him under the bus when we know, because I think it would just be such a black eye if in the situation he's in that they go, right, that's it, you're out. It would be like, well, you cut his legs off and then what are you supposed to do? That's not to take away any of the responsibility from him. That's just to say that strategically from them, it's almost like a PR move. It's like, look, we understand, we're nice guys, we get it. But make no mistake, if we fall to 16th, which is a high possibility in the next couple of weeks, I think he's gone. I don't see Spurs in a relegation battle and them stay in that line. You know what I mean? So I just think it's a bit of embarrassment for them. I think they could have said, we understand the situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, we get it. But to say that his job isn't in any jeopardy, that's a step too far because it's football. You don't know what's going to happen. You simply don't know. So I don't see Spurs fans right now say it's 50-50 and we're in a bad way. We're in 12th in the league, right? Things can get a lot worse. You telling me you're going to have anyone in that stadium when we're in a relegation battle? I think he goes if that's the case. And that's not far. That's just not far. That's the crazy reality is it's not far.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think the form, we are in relegation form at the moment. As you said, 1 win in 8. That win was against Southampton. And we went from a position where we were right in that mix for the European spots, albeit we were still fairly inconsistent, but we were winning games. And now we're in a situation where we can't buy a win for love nor money, and we're losing week in, week out. Obviously, I think the club understand the situation. I think the club are right to stick by him for the time being. And I think a change of manager right now doesn't really make any sense. I don't understand how changing the manager will fix the problems that we currently have. I don't think a change of manager brings back the injuries. I don't think a change of manager starts getting results right now anyway. So the reality is, even if a manager comes in, I think we're going to have to wait for either players to be signed or injuries to return for things to get better, essentially. And so if that's the case, you might as well stick with Ange, because I think things will get better if under Ange, if that's the case anyway, in my opinion. And I think, Ange isn't blameless for where we are right now. Of course, he has to take responsibility as well. But I also think, I just don't think right now in the situation we're in, you can really look at the results and say it's because he's, not, it's his tactics that are the problem. All these different things. Like, I just think any manager who has these kind of injuries, I think the results will take a massive dip, and I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. I think Ange made a good point. When you look at Newcastle. At this point last season, Newcastle had, obviously we're on 10 defeats. At this point last season, Newcastle had 9 defeats and were in a similar position. And that's because of the injuries they had. Even 5 games ago, Newcastle were below Tottenham 5 games ago. They've gone on a 5-game winning streak and now right in the race for top 4. And that's again because they had probably injury problems or whatever. And they've got their full team back now and look at how they're flying. So I think it's also, we're still in all the cups. That is the reality. We're still there in all the cups as well,
yes.
which we're still there. I mean, not just. I mean, we haven't played the semi-final yet. I mean, no, I think we're doing okay in Europa. I think we'll be in the knockouts either way. I'm still pretty confident we'll be in that top 8. And look, the League Cup, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Obviously, we've got a big game on Wednesday. FA Cup is only just starting, but we still are in all these competitions. And I think it would be unfair to call him a failure when you haven't given him a chance to see out these competitions and see how he does. If you kind of sack him before he's had the chance to kind of have a go at them, really, I think that would be unfair.
Well, I think I don't think that you can't call him a failure. I think it's a foregone conclusion so far to date that he is a failure in what you can scope as games won, games lost, etc. Statistically, he's a failure, but that's not to say that he won't be successful, right? But like the reason, like they bringing a new manager in now. And by the way, I'm where I've come to is Ange out. Like I am fully Ange out now. But I agree with you. Right now is not the time to sack a manager in a window. You're not going to bring any players in if you're sacking a manager. Like if your team's in complete chaos. That's what that post was all about. That's what that statement's all about. It's basically saying, look, we've got loads of injuries. If we had our full squad and why we need new players, we will get back and we will dominate again. Like that's kind of what they're trying to say, But for me, like what you said there, you said a key word about taking responsibility. The club's taking responsibility, Ange taking responsibility. But actually, neither are really taking responsibility in terms of the club should be going, look, we did not give Ange a squad. It was thin. Ange, at the start of the window, remember he was asked constantly by people in the press interviews, he was constantly asked, do you think you got backed? And because it was being asked so much, he got angry and he was like, yes. And he'd argue like, oh, we were supposed to have 5, he would say all these things, fighting for the squad that he got. Instead of just going, no, look, I've agreed to go with them in the long run. We couldn't get what we wanted. Okay, so we know we're going to go through. We're going to create a strong team mentality with what we've got. And it's going to be rough waters. If he was just honest like that, that would have been taking responsibility and leaving the doors open for excuses in future. Because now what you can't do is when it goes wrong and consistently keeps going wrong and a flu bug decimates your entire squad, now you've got 8 or 9 players to play. You can't all of a sudden then keep going, yeah, mate, in context, though. It's like you created the context. You created the context. It's like let me put this metaphor to you. Like, see if you can stick with this analogy, right? If this happened to me a few weeks ago, and there's a knock-on effect. I lost my phone, right? Okay, it was stolen, but I put the phone in a place that made it easy to be stolen, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I was angry. I'm like looking for people to blame. It's my fault. I put the phone in the bad place, right? It got stolen. Weeks later, I was experiencing knock-on effects like, oh, I didn't back it up on the iCloud. There was I was writing a book on notes and I've lost that book. And then it causes you like something in my diary didn't back up and I missed the meeting. And all these things kept happening down the line. I can't turn around to someone in the meeting and go, oh, your fault. It's your fault. The context. I can't do that. I made the mistake. So I have to take responsibility every time something happens that stems from that losing of the phone. Because if you live by your phone,
should you lose your job over it?
So yeah, I did. I lost money, and I can't turn around to them and go, "Sorry, but I lost my phone and I didn't back it up and I did all." Like, well, that's your
But
being
Ange is
adult.
taking responsibility. He's never said that he's blameless.
But when
He's always said it's on him. He's always consistently said that, hasn't he?
but when he says in context, that's then him ignoring that. Well, you allowed Werner to sign twice. You didn't play Spence, and you could have given Porro and Udogie time so Porro's form didn't fall through the floor and Udogie didn't get injured. You could have played Reguilon, because Reguilon, look, every time we see one of these players come on, and it turns out actually they're not dreadful and they're more than good enough to have been given squad rotation, it's another black eye. So then he can't sit there and go in the context, like, you created the crisis. You should have been rotating Udogie with Reguilon. You should have been rotating Porro with Spence. Now we see them play, and Spence ends up being one of our best players in this little period, and we're going, another massive mistake from Ange. And you can't keep making these massive mistakes. Now we're seeing it with Bergvall. If Bergvall was rotated into the Premier League team, the first team, if he was rotated in more and got more and more minutes, we would have seen how good a player he is. Because right now, positionally, he's better than Bissouma and Bentancur. Right now, positionally and winning tackles, he's better than Bissouma and Bentancur. So he is the six who could have been playing above them, and we didn't. And so now we've dealt with
How do you know he's not at that level now because of how we've bedded him in? We've played him in Europa and we've bedded him in slowly. How do you know that's not why he's at that level currently?
Well, because it looks like, to me, from experience of like when a manager kind of gives you the arm around the shoulder and trusts you, it looks like he's just feels the confidence of like being starting in games in the Premier League, and then it doesn't go bad and he gains the confidence even more. So I don't think bringing a player on late and times where we've seen him and we're all screaming for subs and he comes on with 2 minutes to go or something. Like, I just don't think that's bedding a player in, and then throwing them on in the kind of Europa when it's a lesser game. That doesn't feel like backing a player to me, Like, but it's way more than that. Even Brandon Austin, like looking so good. You're like, why are we not giving? Why are these players just not getting a chance? And then so when they get a chance, they look really good, and then you start to realize, oh, there was no real reason to have the crisis, because actually what it comes down to is that although Ange said, okay, I'm happy with my squad, I have been backed, I made the decisions, he took responsibility, then he's rebutting it. What we're really seeing is that he never believed in the squad from the start. He believed in 11 players. He never believed in the squad. That's what I see. He never believed in Spence. He didn't want Bergvall. He never believed in Reguilon. He never believed in any other players other than his 11. And now you're seeing it with Kulu. Everyone's going, oh, Kulu's been our best player of the year. Actually, all we're seeing in the last 4 or 5 games is Kulu's form falling off a cliff because he's overplaying him. He's got favourites. As a manager, you can't have favourites. You've got to rotate. Maddison and Kulu are both brilliant players. Go one-on-one. Just keep flipping them. Just don't let Kulu's legs go dead, because you're seeing he's making mistakes. He's losing the ball high up and it's going back and it's causing a goal. Like, Kulu's now, even though he might get a great pass in a game or score a goal, he's turning out to be like really a big problem when he like holds on to the ball or makes a mistake or trips over the ball. It's like, so that he's doing it again. He's doing it. He likes Kulu. He rates him. He won't start a game without him, and it's causing Kulu to be overplayed. So this is bad management.
But at the moment, it seems like we can't play without Decky. I mean, I'm trying to think. There was a few games, wasn't there, where Decky was... Huh?
That's a bad way to think, because you really should be able to play without him.
I mean, at the moment, I get it, but he is our best player, isn't he, Decky? But he has rested him a couple of times. I think he rested him in the Europa League game, didn't he? And I'm trying to remember when else he rested him. Was there a Premier League game he rested him? He rested him against...
You remember, like, there was a little period where I think everyone started to say, "Wow, look at Decky, look at the numbers, look how much he's running," which was amazing. But for me, like, that's an immature manager who goes, "Well, he's playing the next game." It's like there was a game where him and Solanke literally ran to themselves to death, and they fell to the ground. and there was a game a few days later, and they started that game. And for me, that was like, well, you're never going to learn. You're going to do this. You're never going to learn. Even if you just let someone else. Well, Lancashire, for me, that's outrageous. A couple games ago, I think it was the 2-2 with Wolves. Yes, Werner was dreadful, but he did this one thing where he beat a guy and cut it right across the box. It was the perfect ball. There was nothing wrong with it. It was 100%. And Solanke didn't get there. Why didn't he get there? Because he was tired. Will Lancashire, 100%, because he's not going to get held back by the link play that Solanke does. Will Lancashire would have tapped that ball in, 100%. And that was a 3-2 win then. So these are things that I see as like a striker who's played and has had these issues where a manager doesn't back you, or you have to win over the manager's opinion. Like, I see these are all situations where he's just not the guy who manages a squad well or shows faith in youth. He says that he's trying to build this thing, like, let's go, we don't stop. But then he doesn't really believe in the players.
I think the man who, he's really bedded in Graham Bergvall and even Mikey Moore. He's played when he's been fit as well. Like, I think he has shown. I think in all competitions we must be up there with minutes given to teenagers. We must be quite high up on the list. I don't know for sure, but look, let's bring Sai on, because Sai is waiting in the background to join. Sai, welcome to the show. How you doing, Sai?
Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you loud and clear. Sai, nice to have you on, mate. Hope you're doing well. We're just talking about the news that Ange Postecoglou, at the moment, according to David Ornstein, his job is being marked as 100% safe, and there's no uncertainty about his future. What do you think about that news? Is that the right course of action for now, or do you think he should be in more trouble?
I think the club's probably been put in an overall position where we can't afford to do this circus act again so fast. We are in a constant cycle, certainly over the last 5-6 years, of bringing in different types of managers, different styles of play, different mentalities, not working. The fundamental issue is always the lack of depth, the lack of quality, and those changes in adapting games. And at the end of the day, you have to try and show some form of patience, as annoying and dreadful as it sometimes is to watch, especially at the moment, to get through these kind of phases. And I think the dilemma that we've got as Spurs fans and as a club at the moment is that if the whole team was fit, it could be a different story. But these are all what ifs. And then I think that the frustration mainly at the moment comes from the fact that we know there's injuries, we know there's a crisis, etc., etc. But ultimately, you can't keep, as I've just heard the tail end of what Gavin was saying, playing the same players over and over again. You have to utilise what is available to you, and if you're not going to do that, you're going to get punished. So, I'm not saying that the academy players are the exact answer, but they are all we've got. And instead, what we've been doing is bombarding these players week in, week out, on some occasions 2 games or more in a week, certainly over the December period, and it's showing. And the team is depleted. The players are trying their best to encourage each other, but at some point, as we've probably seen, Maddison's eyes rolling when he's coming off at strange times, taking players off at the wrong time when they're having the performances of their life. So I think that's where the dilemma is. So it kind of circles back to that point about he's 100% safe. Is that the right answer or not? I think it would be partial suicide, in my opinion, to change it again at this moment in time in the season. A new manager, don't care who you are, with this current crop of players, with the current depth, I very much doubt the results will change too much. Yes, we might pick up a few more wins in the sense of the different mentality of putting players on or changing the team around in the best way we possibly can. But I think we're just stuck in this motion. And it was evident. It was pointed out by many fans in the summer. Some were so excited that we got some new blood and players in, but failed to realise we just shafted however many players it was, 10, 12 of them, brought in 4 or so players, of which 2 or 3 of them are teenagers with unproven, opportunity in the team. So we've come to December. Well, not even December, actually. It was October. Everyone's already depleted because of the high line that we play, because of the tactics that we play. And yet it does fall down to the manager. I think there's been poor management along the way, for sure. Certainly poor management of players and the lack of a plan B. So that's where we've got a dilemma in my head. Half of me is like, I have to try and support the manager because we need to follow through with a process for at least 2 seasons or maybe 3 seasons, because we've seen historically that managers come in for 18 months. Oh God, we don't like what we're seeing. Change it quick before something happens, and that's where I think you get that kind of trigger point, making the wrong decisions. Yes, there are better managers out there, of course, but the problem is no disrespect to Ange, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but we got probably the 9th or 10th manager on the list because no one else wants to come and work under the regime of Daniel Levy, knowing full facts from the days of Pochettino. There's not enough furniture or new furniture in this stadium to compete to be where we should be that matches our stadium. At the moment, we're matching probably a relegation kind of team, to be honest, quality-wise, in terms of depth. So I'm always balanced with the opinion because I totally see both sides of the story. I absolutely do. I'm Levy out. I'm trying to back the manager. I'm trying to back the players. But equally, I'm spending a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy going to every game at home, as many away games as possible. And sometimes it just clicks in your head after a while where you're like, hang on a minute. This is like, you could be doing something very different here. So that's why I see both sides of the story. But I do think as well, to that point of the article, it would be really stupid, I think, at this stage of the season to change the manager. You've got to see it through, see what comes in January, not holding up much hope at all. Maybe we'll get like a 10th or 12th goalkeeper in, who knows. But also we could see the adaptation potentially of some new players, the older players coming back in the next month, see if that changes things. See how we do in these competitions outside of the Premier League. Forget the league. The league is gone. Like, we have to focus on these other competitions and see how that goes. Remember the one-day Ramos season where it was a terrible season. We won a cup and then we nearly got relegated still at the end of the season because everyone was having a party because they were so excited. Not saying that we may go down that route or we may win something, but we have to see something through. Another manager coming in, we're going to go through the same circle every year, every 18 months. That's my thoughts on it.
And that's a good point. To you, Brains, how do you break that 18-month cycle if you don't, to break it? If at the moment, we're right here where we are, where we've been the last 2 managers at least, and actually the one before Poch. Since Poch, Ange, I think if he manages the game apparently on Wednesday, or the Arsenal game, I should say, he'll be our longest-serving manager post-Pochettino. And before that as well, you had AVB, who was only 18 months before Herr Redknapp. So 4 or 5 of our last 6 managers, I think, or 4 of our last 5 managers have all been just 18-month cycles. In perpetually, you have a good start, things start to go wrong, and then we get rid of him, right? So how do we go about, do you think we should think about just whatever happening right now, just break that cycle, give him that time to turn it around, instead of doing the same thing we always do, which is bring an interim in or bring a new manager in. Maybe there's a little bounce when he comes in, and then in about 18 months' time, we're in the same scenario where he's got to have to figure things out, and things maybe he goes through his sticky patches himself, and then this new manager is also going to have to go through a sticky patch, and we're going to have to stick by him as well. So is that, can you not see why we should maybe stick by this one for now?
No, but so there's 2 different ways to look at it. Hold on.
Hey, you're there.
Yeah, there's 2 different ways to look at it. You got so if you had to ask the fan base, because the question's too simple, like Ange in, Ange out. Well, that doesn't give nuance to anyone's reasons why, right? But if you say, are you Ange in because you want him to just get a chance, just give him 3 or 4 seasons, no matter what happens, are you Ange in? That's a little bit more nuanced. That's some people. I think a lot of people, lot less than are saying we're Ange in would be Ange in. And the same flip side of that, are you Ange in because are you Ange out because you don't think that he has any chance of winning anything anytime in the next 5 years? Then I think more Ange in people would agree with the Ange out. So it's a lot more of a understandable question when you put it in different ways. But I just think, yeah, I agree 100% what Sai's saying there is, and what you're saying about the cycle. But then what you have to realize, Sim, is that your argument then, and it probably isn't, but I'm saying right there, agreeing with Sai in this context, is that your argument is, let's just give this guy as much time as possible for whatever to happen. So what, he might not be a good enough manager to, in the nitty gritty, to help us win anything, but he might steady the ship and get us some decent results again. But I genuinely would agree that would be fine. And I also genuinely agree that I would be fully Ange in if this club would ever give him world-class players, because Ange with a world-class attack, Ange with a really solid midfield, Ange with the right setup for his style, yeah, he might win things. He'd probably almost certainly win things. But this club will never give him that. So then it goes, well, what kind of manager do Spurs need? And I think any good manager is first based on their ability to not lose, to like be strong. Like, when you're trying to get a mentality in players' heads, they need to learn how to not lose, because every time you lose, it breaks mentality. So you can't just get them to run, try score, and then they lose games. That's going to hurt them more than build them up. So I see a inherent flaw in Ange's ideology. That's why I'm Ange out, because I'm just going, well, look, this rebuild that we've done, that we're kind of halfway through, I don't think we're anywhere near. I think we're back at the start again, because I think he's killing players more than doing anything positive for them. So I think we need look at what we need. We need another big striker, or we need more work in the front line, wingers. We need new defenders. We need so much that it's like, you may as well let him see out the season, right? And make sure you bring in a manager who can work with a half-ass squad that Levy's only ever going to give any manager, and make them strong so they can kind of grind out results and be a good attacking team. And that's the negative.
Do you not see the potential of the team though when things are going well? What they're capable of, and have we not seen that this season?
But have you never been in a relationship with a girl where when you are like, oh, when it's good, it's real good, but when it's bad, she's cheating on me with 6 guys, and she's stabbing knives into my pillow. It doesn't really matter. Like,
But she's the one. No.
This is the truth about humans. The measure of a man is not on how he manages success; it's how he deals with defeat. Now, if you can't build a strong mentality in players so that in 10 minutes of a game they lose their minds and all of a sudden we've lost 3 goals. If you in the time,
but that comes with a young team, no? That comes with them learning and them going through that process.
So if you're a manager and you've got a young team, what do you do first? You make sure they are, because if you're confident in your ability to play attacking football, first things first, you make them unbeatable at the back. Then you build attacking play in. He's just gone full attack, and then everyone's gone, yeah, we're going to lose 5-6 goals every game, ball over the top, and we're going to get beat. We all knew that. And then it happened, and we're like,
I disagree with that. I disagree. If you're going to implement attacking football, there's no point first focusing on the defense, because then you're not going to get that attacking style that you want to implement. You're not going to get that right.
Where does all of our kind of ball playing stuff come from? Comes out.
Yeah, you build out. Yeah, but that's not defending. That's a style of play that comes from implemented by Ange, drilled in on the ball possession. That's what he's focusing on, to get that right. And then once we're free scoring, then you can start to tighten up at the back to make sure that we're making the most of it. And that's what he's trying to do, I think. And actually, this season, defensively, look, I know you're set 5-6 a game, but it hasn't been like that, really. It's only really been the Liverpool game and the Chelsea game where it's been like that. Apart from those 2 games, our defence has actually not been terrible, numbers-wise, anyway.
And our defence has actually been better with Davies and Dragusin, and then Archie and Dragusin.
No, it hasn't. I don't agree with that. I don't think he's been better.
As in, like, you know, better as in terms of like over, like, beating expectation, you know, exceeding expectation. Because when Davies comes in, we're thinking like, oh God, you know, and then we go and beat City 4-0. You know, like that defense in the second half against Newcastle doesn't concede a goal. So like sometimes our defense has these really good figures because they're just desperate to, you know, to show themselves. But in overall, what I'm saying when I say defending, I'm not just specifically saying get everyone behind the ball and, you know, 5-4-1. I'm talking about the press. I consider the press defending. You press from the front, you defend from the front, and we don't do that. Like, sometimes when we get a lot of good stuff happening, it is from the press, but we do not do that press right. We still get that press wrong. Our midfielders are not in the right position, you know, other than when it's Bergvall and sometimes when it's Bentancur. Like Basuma is never close enough to the press. It's just all over the place. Our fullbacks go too far in. They overcommit above the halfway line, and then they're dead going back. So it's just little things like that. It's like you could easily just move this around, tweak it, get it tighter, not so overcommittal, not so gun-ho, rely on the quality of players and passing ability rather than needing to dive in, you know, then you could make it tighter. So I'm meaning like in overall, like when you're on the front foot and the ball gets turned over, that's where defending begins. So I mean defending in their half, you know, like little things like that. And also maybe when you come into a season knowing that you've got two of your best defenders on hamstring, you know, recurring hamstring problems, maybe, just maybe, you slightly adapt to their positioning. Maybe you don't have them so gun-ho that Mickey van de Ven's doing 45-yard sprints every 5 seconds. Maybe you just adapt a little bit, because what's ended up happening is he's been forced to adapt because he doesn't have Mickey van de Ven, so he has Davies. Davies takes a lower position, and all of a sudden we seem more stronger. So when you go, like, actually defense has not been that bad a problem. Yeah, it's not, because he's been forced to adapt because he doesn't have the fast, strong players.